Hi, this is Misha, and it's time for yet another Swiss video. I'm afraid you wouldn't even know you were on our channel if we didn't do one of these at least every few weeks. Got a rifle here. So we've got a standard bipod, of course. We've got the 20.7 inch barrel with the permanently, well, it's part of it, as I've said many times. The flash hider is machined as part of it. There are no, trust me, this has been safety checked, there are no internal threads inside the device, which is correct, at least for this generation. We've got the hump on the barrel. We've got the bayonet lug for the standard Swiss bayonet. Got the standard 2-position gas. We've got normal and adverse. Diopter front with flip night. Standard length rifle handguards. Got the standard Swiss cross on top. The diopter's here. Now it has the insert for target shooting, kind of the adjustable iris, which is interesting. It's got this plate in the back. You can look through and you can adjust it up here. Pretty neat. This has the early so-called whale tail stock that you saw in my pre-ban. Little different contouring than the later stock. And then the receiver. Got some scratches and stuff because it's not new. But you might notice the absence of something. Got a standard mag well and all that. But, something seems missing. We've got SAN imports, so we've got an import marking. But, don't really see anything on the side, do you? Didn't say Swiss Arms or SiG. Doesn't say 550. Let me flip it over to this side. It'll be upside down, but you can take a gander real quick. Not much over here either, except some more serial numbers. What could we have here? What could we have without markings? Before we get into this a little more, let's see how she shoots. SG550. Held open. Obviously, being Swiss, this was a very smooth shooter. Very light recoil. Even though it's used, it still shot awesome. Stock is still plenty tight. Everything is still tight. Alright, teasing over. What do we have here, guys? Well, this is an older SiG production firearm. Officially, this is an SG550, according to the import paperwork. and the overseas vendors and all of that. That's what it was sold as. However, over in Switzerland, the semi-auto 550 is known as the PE90. These are the same as the military's STGW-90, but built as semi-auto only, and they are used extensively by Swiss competition shooters. And much like this gun, they really don't have any markings, aside from some proofs. Serial number on the receiver, which is the top, the lower frame, the bolt carrier, and the bolt. Also, the Swiss crest. So, yeah. What do we have? We have a PE90. That's why it's used. So let's look at some proof marks. In this general area, I'm doing my best to show you. You should be able to make out on the original Swiss SiG proofs. It's kind of a stylized SiG logo. Also, and of course that's on the technical receiver, it also has SiG stamped into the top, but that's not uncommon. Even modern stamped receivers coming out of the SAN, Swiss Arms Neuhausen factory, have this on top of the lower frame, so nothing especially special there. Also worth noting, the barrel has its numbers, and then it has W plus F for Waffen Fabrik Bern, who did make these guns. Actually, they made a number for the Swiss military. That was part of the original contract. So it's not at all uncommon or bad to find a barrel manufactured by Bern. Honestly, I can tell these from the SiG barrels because there's a little bit more machining, just like tiny latherings on the barrel. Kind of interesting. Again, doesn't matter at all, but this shows a different manufacturer. Prior to these imports from SAN Imports, there were only 10, maybe 20 PE90s in the US, all used. Seems like most had about 90% finish with scratches and such like this. And no one really knew how they came into the USA. Some people thought they might have come down from Canada. Others just thought they were just brought over without really worrying about imports. Either way, they've been in the country for 20, 30 years, and there's no issues with them. They've been publicly owned, shown, sold online, without anything, bad happening, because they're the exact same gun as the pre-ban 550s, the PE90s, except our pre-ban guns have the loop for the bayonet machined off the gas block, which is unfortunate. They still have the flash hider, but this hump, while it's on the barrel, has been machined down from 22 millimeter to about 20, and actually the flash hider has been machined down a bit as well. This was done so that a grenade could not fit. Otherwise, the pre-ban guns are just like the military, but of course they do say SiG or SiG arms on the receiver, and then 550. Whereas this one has military style markings or PE90 style markings, and by that I mean lack thereof. Well, since we had it out shooting, let's run one more mag through it, shall we? Alrighty. And of course the second mag there went just as smoothly as the first. And I took the opportunity to get it reassembled. When I'm doing these videos on my own, it's pretty much impossible to do those things one-handed. I gotta hand it to JDI Sand Imports. Very, very good, very clever, and also extremely by-the-book way of doing things. Essentially, they've just asked to do things that no one has asked to do before, and the ATF and Customs said yes. Kind of reminds me of the POF MP5s that came in and that were sold by Atlantic a few years back, and then later the Zenith. They had the flapper mag release, they had the third axis pin, and when asked why the previous guns, like the HKs, had to have the shelf and all that, and the ATF was okay with those not having them, the ATF's reply was pretty much, no one had ever asked us. They're not going to approve things that they hadn't been asked to approve before, so sometimes you just have to dare to do. And that's what happened with this. The 550 is approved for import. Previously, you've seen in our videos the new production 550s, the 50 gray and green ones that JDI brought in. Well, they asked essentially to bring in something that resembled extremely closely and was a used gun, a PE90, but legally and through all documents from the purchase over in Switzerland, through customs and all that, they were registered as a 550, and that's perfectly fine. I know that sounds a little hinky, but that's actually how all the guns get into our friends in the north in Canada. The 550, by name, is not allowed up there. So the way they get them in up there is they import them as various other names, like the Army Classic or the Blue Diamond. Excuse me, the Blue Star or the Red Diamond. It's late, guys. So they are happy that the guns aren't marked 550 up in Canada, because if they were, they couldn't have them. Previously in the US, they came in as 550 because that's just how SiG and later SAN row marked their semi-auto export guns. But in this instance, the markings are like the military, so therefore pretty minimalist. This might seem unusual, but think about K31s, guys. A lot of you, I'm sure, own military surplus K31s, and really about the only markings they have are the Swiss cross, the serial numbers, and of course, the import marking of whomever brought that K31 in. So this gun, for all intents and purposes, is the exact same thing. It was made as a semi-auto only. It was never select fire, and it is imported as surplus. Military, police, it doesn't matter. And so it has the same markings as your K31. I don't know if this has the 1 in 10 twist, so as a -1, or the 1 in 7 -2, but I suspect since it was used in Switzerland, it's probably a -1, so 1 in 10. meaning it's probably better for ammo in the 55 to 62 grain range. It's a relatively early production, but not super early. I did have one come in that even still had the original double dimple magwell, and you can actually see it in a video on my personal channel. But I knew that would be of extreme interest to collectors, so I had to move it along. But now that leaves me with the dilemma. Do I want to keep this earlier SiG production gun with a burn barrel, or my new production JDI 550? The benefits to that gun: it is a brand new gun. I'm its first and only owner. I put the first rounds through it outside of the factory. But it is a modern 21st century gun made by SANS, Swiss Arms Neuhausen. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is a modern gun. On the other hand, this is a SiG gun made in the late 80s or early 90s. So there's a certain mystique to the still original SiG stuff. I don't know. Not necessarily saying it's better, but definitely collectors and hobbyists tend to, even in Switzerland, they especially just tend to kind of like the older ones more. But on the other hand, it does have scratches. It's a used gun. It's not, it all means beat up, but there's some scuffs in the handguard, a few nicks in the buttstock, and some scratches on the receiver. The bore's still great in it. The action's still perfect. But I'd rather have a used SiG or a new SAN. You know, years ago, if you told me I was going to have this problem, this dilemma, I wouldn't have believed you. Years ago, we were just happy to get the US SiG 556, and then the 556 Classic, and then the 551A1. We thought it really wouldn't get better than that. Then the police trade-in 551s came from Mishaco, the Louisiana wildlife fishing game, and that was amazing and awesome. But then JDI came on the scene and just keeps upping the game. First they brought in brand new production 551 short barrels, then more 553s, including the long barrel, which made me very happy. Then the 550, which I talked about, and then even a 551 long barrel. And now they're doing the 751 and 308. And they're even doing different colors and arrangements of the 550, like the Blue Star and the Red Devil or Red Diamond, whichever you prefer to call it. And of course the 553s. They're still coming in. I remember when the 553s first started coming in years ago through M+M. Armedi was the distributor, Colorado Gun Sales. They were the first new production Swiss SG550 guns in well over 20 years at that point. And that was awesome. I mean, a lot of people were hoping they would do different ones, but they were just thrilled to get any gun. So they were thrilled with the SAN production 553 with the 9-inch barrel. And those things cost $5,000 when they first came in, just as pistols. Now, we've got all these choices from JDI. Granted, they come in small batches and they sell out relatively quickly, but at least they're coming in. And they're $4,000 or less if you get a pistol and then a stock and convert it or do all that. Whoever thought we would have these kind of choices again? And I've done the value calculator of what a 550 cost back in the 80s and what they cost today. And the truth is, once you adjust for inflation, they are cheaper now by a bit than they were back then. So make no mistake, these are not overpriced as such. And back in the 80s, we really only had the 550. A few 551 carbines came in, but none with the 14-inch barrel. They all had the 16, so not even an LB or an SB. It was a special intermediate length just for the U.S. market, and only a handful came in. Anyway, I could talk on all night about the different variants and sporters. You don't want to hear me go over that again. You can check out the playlist for that. But yeah, it's just really cool and very interesting that we're faced with these choices now. I think most people just kind of assume the awesome imports like SiG or SAN were long over. But no, lately the imports have gotten really cool. Companies like JDI. Also, I have to give my hats off to Mike Ott at Michael's Machines. He did the G36, and he might be doing some pretty cool stuff in 2019. I've also heard rumors and some even confirmations of other neat guns due in this year from Europe. So, hey, this kind of might be the year of the small boutique specialist importer instead of these big companies, because aside from CZ with their Bren 2, there's not really much at SHOT Show that's tickling my trigger. I just don't really care about more ARs. I don't know what IWI is really doing. They announced the Devore 7 a year ago, and that hasn't materialized. They had a good strong start, but they just kind of seemed like they petered out. Not really much from Beretta. The ARX 100's discontinued, I believe. I don't know if we'll ever see an ARX 200, but... And the AK market's pretty stagnant, with really kind of the only neat new news being WBP for sure, and maybe Zastava USA. So yeah, which should I keep, guys? This used SiG or my new SAN? Shooting wise, they're both equally smooth and amazing and everything you'd expect from a gun of this caliber. And tightness wise, upper to lower handguards, again, they're equal. The one nice thing about this, we do have the early stock and the earlier style of handguard with the multiple vent slots in the bottom. Of course, the SAN, the new gun, has the newer style furniture. That's really about the only difference. Both have stamped lowers, of course stamped uppers, both have the Swiss crest, both have diopters. Of course, this thing in the back is simple and easy to remove if you don't want it, but it's good for target shooting. Both have the grenade bulge, the bayonet lug. Both have the fixed flash hider without the internal threads, which seems to be the norm. So there's not really a nickel's worth of difference aside from the markings and the different furniture. Well, like I said, it wouldn't be our channel if we didn't visit Swiss Guns every couple of weeks, so hope you enjoyed this little look. Any questions or comments? Do please post them below. And if you want more information on the history and all that, you can check out the playlist as usual. Well, this is Misha, and Jay and I will catch you very soon, probably with more Swiss Guns, next time.